Welcome to the Tequila Time Podcast. I'm Tequila, and I'm so excited to introduce to you my guest today, El Mono, who's a member of the Ape Yacht Club. Hey, El Mono, how are you doing today?
Hey, how's it going? I'm doing phenomenal. I'm really glad to be here on the Tequila Podcast, and really proud to be the first few here on the show. Thanks for having me.
Amazing, you're welcome. It's so good to have you here. And yeah, my day is going great so far. I've been so excited to talk to you. I'd really like to just roll back basically to the start of your journey into the Ape Yacht Club. How did that look for you?
So it was really May of last year, and I was on what has since become an inaugural, annual trip that I take with my younger brother, who's also a member of the yacht club. And we were upstate New York in a place called the Catskill Mountains, which is very close to where Woodstock was held. And at the time, I was already neck deep in the Web3 space after the GameStop and AMC boom, and had stepped into an altcoin called crypto something, right? And then that rolled into Dogecoin, and then I rolled that ultimately into a token called Shiba Inu, and that lost a few zeros, and I was feeling all right. And then, so when we went up to the mountains, I was already into it. I already kind of knew what was going on, but I had no idea what an NFT was yet. And my brother and I, we took a heroic dose of magic mushrooms in the forest. And on the way back from this trip, like, we're driving back into the city, so it had nothing to do with the mushrooms themselves, but my mind was already kind of open and things were turning up stop. Underneath the fez hat, I was really thinking about what was next. And I kept scrolling through Twitter on the way back home, and I noticed these CryptoPunk things were going berserk. Like, they were all over Twitter, and I could have bought CryptoPunks that have since sold for tens of millions of dollars. And for the longest time, I still kind of kicked myself about it. But the difference between CryptoPunks and the Bored Apes, as I kept scrolling, I started to see these monkey JPEGs. And the monkeys gave you IP, right? So CryptoPunks, they didn't give you anything. It was just these 8-bit, JPEGs. And after doing some more scrolling, I was like, oh, I really don't like these as much as I like the Bored Apes. So again, there I am scrolling past a bunch of Bored Apes, blue laser eyes, gold fur, merch combos, all this stuff that has since sold for tens of millions of dollars. And I said no to all of them. And I went straight for El Mono 2083, and I bought that one first. And when I woke up the next morning, the floor price had doubled. And so I pulled all the liquidity I felt comfortable pulling, and I bought a bunch of Bored Apes, and that's been it.
That's an amazing story. Such an entrance. Like, the GameStop thing was crazy. That was insane just to watch. And there's been that Netflix documentary about it recently, and it's quite interesting just to kind of watch it all play out. But yeah, that's such an interesting story. I'm so glad you made it into the Ape Yacht Club, and you chose the Bored Apes over punks. Nothing against the punks, but it definitely
Nothing
feels
against the punks.
Nothing at all, but it definitely hits different. I feel like the Ape Yacht Club community are like something like no other. I feel like we've become one within a community of people who are all kind of aiming for the same thing. And there's so many creators, so many people who want to grow, so many people who have taken on, I guess, a new form of identity. We've even, for example, look at us with our filters. We're doing a podcast, which is, I guess, completely different to any other ever. We're hitting a first. Everything is possible because of Ape Yacht Club. And I believe the community had a major part in the success over the last year and a half. I think it's been a wild ride, and I'm so excited for where we're going. Who knows what's going to happen, but I'm just literally bubbling inside.
I don't want to say I agree with everything you say, right? Because I feel like that's one of the most beautiful things about the community, is that we're not this echo chamber that, wag me this, wag me that. We all do the same thing, and this massive group think mentality. But you're exactly right here. The IP ownership may have been the first thing that got me into the apes over, posed the decision between apes versus punks. But I remember when I was looking at what utility was, right, and exploring what utility the Bored Ape Yacht Club would offer. It was and I'm sure you remember this, right? It was the bathroom wall that you could update 1 pixel on every 15 minutes. And of course, there was like the race to draw your ape number or the race to draw whatever rainbow or anything that you wanted. And I spent like 4 hours one night just staying up late, updating 1 pixel at a time on this wall. And the community has since taken the IP and grown so much. And like most recently with the community panel and the new community leaders getting recognized officially from the Bored Ape Yacht Club, Josh Ong, I remember being not necessarily in talks directly with them, but I remember, after May last year, leading up to the first Ape Fest, those were the guys and girls, like those were the people that were on the Twitter chats and creating all of the early community momentum. But you're 100% right. And so to be, sharing this space with you, filters on, and repping the Bored Ape Yacht Club is a dream come true.
Yeah, it's insane. Who would have even thought we would have, I guess, got this far? Obviously, lots of NFT projects have dropped since last summer. So since last summer, so many have dropped daily. Nothing has seemed to have reached the heights of what Bored Ape Yacht Club have already. So to be a part of this particular community, I think is so special. And I'm grateful because I managed to get in early enough to be on the journey. I kept it a secret from everyone I know except very close people, but none of my friends, anyone in real life really knows I'm a Bored Ape. No one knows any of it. Like they just think I'm retired young and just kind of live in a paradise lifestyle on a beach. No one really understands what I do anymore. So it's a bit crazy.
It's so again, like I mentioned Josh and like Storm and some of the other early users of the IP, including Jenkins, the valet, Valet Jones now on Twitter, and that whole movement to take ownership of the IP. I remember seeing your videos of you running on the beach saying tequila, and that was like, it became such a big part of the community. And I mean, that's obviously why we're here today, right? But I remember seeing those videos thinking, man, there's someone that's doing it, like that's what I need. I need that in my life.
Yeah, my one goal every single day, even before joining the Bored Ape Yacht Club, was just to have fun. Because as you get older, I feel like life becomes more serious. You have more responsibilities. You're, I guess, in a job, whether it's an office-based role or anything else, you always feel like you need to be that little bit more professional, that little bit more reserved, and I guess not cause scenes. But there's something inside of me that's always been a little bit childish, where I've never lost that spark inside of me that kind of wants to just have fun and not care what anyone else thinks. And as much as it is a little bit unusual, I guess, because it's all very brand new, I felt when I bought my Bored Ape that I become one with it. It was a random purchase because it was in a liquidity pool. So it was a random selection. My ape chose me. And when it displayed and it had a Hawaiian themed shirt and it was like a bored ape, with the bored mouth and the stoned eyes, so laid back, everything about that ape that came from that liquidity pool was like, oh my gosh, that's basically me. I'm like laid back, relaxed, Hawaiian vibes because I'm like living a beach lifestyle. Everything about it made sense. So when I found a way to bring my Bored Ape to life with the filters, thanks to Mopeat, I just jumped on it. I think I was the first to have one with him. And from that moment, I have made video after video after video. And so many people around me, when I make them, kind of laugh a little. They might take the pee. And some of them actually turn around and sing tequila with me, which is quite funny when that happens. But in general, it's a little bit crazy, but I've always kind of been that way. And my ape with this filter gave me like this new reason to, I guess, be myself, which is really crazy. But yeah, I really do love singing, yelling tequila every single day. It like brings joy to me. So I'm glad you enjoy it.
You said it first. Big shout out to Mopeat. This is the V2 he made for me. Actually, it's the fur, a little bit longer here. I think if I shake the head, it sees my little fez tassel up here, kind of moving around. And he's great. He and I were chatting this morning, and thanks again for jumping in on a Saturday, helping us out with some tech support. He's great.
Sure. And it's looking good. I'm liking the upgrade. My ears like wiggle a little bit more and the little hair on the top is like, yay. Yeah.
It's perfect. Yeah, and you touched on something interesting there with getting back into feeling childish and like feeling like happy about it, right? I mentioned earlier that I left the aerospace and defense industry back in April, and since then I've endeavored to work with a few different Web3 organizations and entities, and from blockchain consulting to, working with a company called MetaNoise, which is, the shirt that I'm wearing right now, and hosting events, going to events, this time as, a founder, a builder, and a creator of things, right? I did dabble in launching my own NFT project, went absolutely nowhere, but I had to do it to say that I've done it and feel like adequate in, consulting conversations with different artists, because I don't want to talk about something that I haven't like experienced or done myself. And, using something like Manifold, it's really not that hard. And I hope to get to the point, not just me personally, but where, you and I can have this conversation and there's the majority of the world that understands what we're talking about here today, instead of, maybe the 5 or 10% that really get it like we get it. And I'm really excited for what's going to come over the next year with metaverses being built out and just this general mass adoption as the technology becomes more accessible.
For sure. Like, you make so much sense in the things you're saying. It's completely the way I'm thinking as well. There's going to be multiple metaverses. And until mass adoption comes, I think it's invaluable making new content. I think it's invaluable giving small, I guess, knowledge bombs. So when anyone in the public domain watch these videos back on YouTube, they're like, oh, that's like new, that's different. And then hopefully they'll become more inquisitive and want to learn more. So if we're talking about it constantly and with new information as it comes, I think it's the best way to bring new people into the community, is to give them value and share knowledge in a simple way where it's even terminology that they'd understand. I mean, even a GM, like a lot of normal people wouldn't even know what GM kind of stands for. But obviously on crypto Twitter, it is a good morning. It's basically become a form of engagement farming. We do it all the time. So I think everything we're doing right now, even though it's not the mass population of the world, and we are a very small percentage of people who understand things so far, it is so rapidly growing. Like, everything moves so fast. 24 hours feel like a week has gone if you miss it. And I just see so many people in the future looking back at the history and where it started, when they finally realize that everyone is going to be immersed in the metaverse, no matter how that looks, whether it's through P2E gaming, whether it's because they've got a job that's online, but it's in the metaverse, whether it's someone who's just inquisitive, builds an avatar and is like, oh, this is a fun place to be. Maybe they prefer it to more than in real life. But when that happens, when more people come into this, I just hope that everyone creating right now, including just things like podcasting like this, gives so much valuable information that it becomes a source of trust. Because there's going to be a lot of bad actors and a lot of people who try and give information just to fill their own bags and to do naughty things, because, there are criminals in the world, and blockchain, smart contracts, the metaverse, Web3, all of that is amazing and it's decentralized and it's beautiful. But I guess that does, bring others into it as well. So that's what I just wanted to bring people together for a source of trusted knowledge, which will live here forever, hopefully.
Yeah, I wish I had some trusted knowledge back in December last year, right? So El Mono, I clicked a bad link and actually had El Mono swiped from my wallet in a
Wow.
Animate Your Ape scam, and that has since made, I think it's national headlines at this point, but I want to say it's international headlines through, an exit scam. I mean, that was the name of the person, and I ended up finding someone else in the Web3 community in China who was willing to sell back El Mono to me at cost. And that's why I'm here today, as El Mono instead of anything else. And when I look at just different global ape communities that I'm sure you're more than tapped into as well, from China to Korea to, even in some in Africa, with, Blackbird Genes or other projects out there that are really seeking to elevate the presence of Web3 globally. When I took the name Elmano back in the day, again, back in the day, you mentioned 24 hours being like a week, so back in the day, when I say back in the day, I'm talking about like 8 to 10 months ago. And this moniker Elmano, right? I saw so many people using the IP and so many people finding their niche within that. I mentioned Jenkins earlier, and Jenkins, I'm such a huge fan of Jenkins and all the things that he's done. I picked up the yacht and I've started reading tons of Neil Strauss because I'm going to be written in as a main character into the Bored and Dangerous novel as Elmano. But when I thought of Elmano and I was kind of picking what niche I wanted to take, I started thinking of my own heritage, right? I'm in South America right now in Bolivia. I know we've talked about this, but, having that Latin blood kind of flowing through my veins, I wanted to rep something that, aligned with that, right? So Elmano, literally translated just means the monkey or the ape in English. And, since then, the Latin ape American community, we've just been booming. Laura Rodriguez out in Miami, the Miami ape, she's with Fox Deportes all the time, I got to give a huge shout out to them as well. Eddie Rodriguez and I are working together, and like some alpha for you on the podcast right now. We're launching an Elmano coffee brand. It's going to be out of Costa Rica and looking to go live here in December. But just so much global community is coming out of this, and I'm really bullish on the whole Web3 just adoption, right?
That's amazing. I love it. And I love coffee, so I'll definitely try a bag. And
I'll make sure you get one.
Thank you so much. And I love Costa Rica actually as well. I traveled there a few months ago and it was just beautiful. Like, wow. I went to Tortuga Island and it was just like, yeah, beautiful.
So Costa Rica, that's awesome. I haven't been to Costa Rica yet. The next trip on my radar is I fly to Brazil tomorrow, and I'm really excited to go explore that place for the first time. But I mean, that brings me to a question. I know you travel a ton. What is the funnest place you've been to since you started your Web3 journey?
Wow, that is a question. So it depends how you look at it. So the first year last year when I first got into NFTs and joined the Bored Ape community, I was basically in the Caribbean, been exploring different places, and I'm trying to find the perfect island because I'm launching a Tequila verse and I'm trying to find the perfect real life island. So I'm keeping everything quiet right now about my project because I don't really want to shill it, but it's something I'm working on in real life. And when all of the real life meetups were happening and the first sort of Ape Fest happened and Art Basel and everything last year, I missed it. And I was so devastated because I had so much FOMO because everyone was meeting each other for the first time. And I don't know, it seemed like this special moment that I kind of missed. So this year I managed to go to New York and I managed to get all 4 nights at Ape Fest. So I would say that's actually been the most fun and exciting thing for me, just because my life has become immersed in Web3 and NFTs and the culture. And to be able to meet people from the community who I'm in groups with and, everyone we kind of talk to on Twitter, it was so great to put real life faces to the handles and to the ape profiles. So I would say that just because of the network of people that I was able to meet. But otherwise, I follow the sunshine and I just basically search wherever I am for the perfect hotspot. That is me, like beach life, beach bum.
No, I love that. And I also I had to trade for the 20th. So I did do some trading. And again, the Bored Apes, the yacht club in general, right? Like I keep saying Bored Apes, but when I say that, I do mean our mutant brothers and sisters. And, we're all one and the same to me. And I think I traded with a mutant actually for that day 1 ticket for Ape Fest. And with that, I also was able to attend all 4 days. and
Nice.
the execution of Ape Fest this year. You mentioned last year you weren't able to make it, and from the warehouse chaos that last year was to the Pier 17 organized event, like token proof, Fonz doing his thing. It was great. And, I too got to meet a lot of cool apes. I got to meet Vera Lee in person. She runs Board Chili, does the Board Chili podcast. And her and I, since then, have been able to jump on a few weekly Zooms and then, just follow up, right? Because it's like,
Yeah.
you meet so many people in like so many different places, and especially in that kind of conference setting, it's important to find the people that follow up with you. Or like for me, it was really important to be the one to follow up, because having gone to so many of them in 2021, I realized that, just by default expecting people to follow up with you because you're like X, Y, or Z, right? Like it doesn't, like it's about building value, right? Like I said this before, but we're not a community. And when I say we, I mean the Bored Ape Yacht Club, again, including the Mutant Ape Yacht Club. We're not this community that's here to extract value. And I haven't seen that, right? Looking at the kennels, looking at Other Side, looking at ApeCoin coming up here on the 21st, the amount of building going on in general in the yacht club is what I think sets us apart from other communities. And what I think, really solidified that was those sub communities like Board Chili doing its thing. I know Pink Dow's doing its thing. Shout out Nick Wads and, Vera just in general for doing so much for the community in Asia and doing so much for the community globally. And I think that these community leaders, right, that are now officially branded by the Bored Ape Yacht Club as the go-to points of contact, or these future developers of what our community is going to be shaped into over the next 5-10 years. Just, I'm uber bullish, right? I think the other alpha that I saw yesterday was, it was around the Sandbox launch, right? And on the tweet, not from the Bored Ape Yacht Club, but on the Sandbox tweet, they specifically listed Miami 2035. And I look forward to the tequila verse, right? So that way I can be on an island with you for like the majority of the year, and then we'll go party in Miami for Ape Fest every year. Sounds like a good life.
Let's fucking go. Yeah, no, honestly, I'm super bullish too. I'm so excited for everything to come. And like you said, it is because our community, which is completely inclusive of any holder in the Yoga Labs ecosystem, I too also believe it's because we're all building. We're all trying to build IP around something, and whether it's together as a joint effort for a project within the community, or whether it's with your sole IP, just as your Bored Ape, and maybe using it to license like you are with Jenkins the Ballet, for example. There's so many things going on. There's so many exciting avenues any of us can go down. We've got so many options right now. And all we need to do is be present, be active, learn, join together, give value to one another, like a circle of energy between one another. And one day it will manifest to something bigger than what we believe, what we even know, understand, or see. Because what is coming next is something without a ceiling, something where anything is possible. Any ideas can become something, and can become something bigger than that idea, because our brains are not actually capable of being as open as I'd like. And what will come in future is just, I think, something that we will not expect. So to, again, be building, be present, be able to use the new technology, use blockchain, use smart contracts, use everything at our disposal. By doing so, I think there's just no other option than to succeed in whatever we're aiming for.
100%. And, you bring me to my next point on IP ownership and usage. Jenkins is great. We're bridging the gap to physical, but, I'm wearing today my Bejeweled piece here on the side, and then I got my piece from Brandon Naster here as well. My two, one's kind of like my everyday El Mano, and then the other one's like a special occasion Tequila Podcast El Mano. And I think that, now that we're starting to see that gap bridged from digital to physical, it's going to open up an entirely new wave of what the IP is capable of for us as individuals, and then, working as collectives, looking at Stecky doing his thing with, I want to say it was Nicky Diamonds, where they got into Zoomies stores. And I've seen, ape merch in Old Navy stores, just online. Like, full disclosure, I have not been to an Old Navy since like I was there at like 12 years old getting clothes for school. But I saw it online somewhere, and really bullish on physical applications of IP as well.
For sure. It is so exciting. And like the branding I've seen is all pretty cool because I think bored apes in general and mutant apes and everything, I think we've all got such an image really just through our profile pictures. Like the merch looks awesome. So yeah, lots of things I've seen looks great. And even jewelry. Like I've seen lots of like bored ape jewelry with like the necklaces and then the actual sort of 3D image of the ape. And yeah, there's some incredible things. Awesome.
What was it? Tag Heuer doing the watches too. You could get like your ape watch, and of course everyone's got it on their Apple Watch. If you got the Apple Watch, you got to rep a little bit. I know my brother does.
Yeah, there's some watches. Like everything just looks good. I personally don't rep anything in real life because I personally don't want to be robbed.
Yeah.
So
I always tuck that. Again, this one's for special occasions only. Like the last time I think I put this one on was in LA. I was in town for. So there's this like collective. I knew it as an alpha group, kind of like born IRL, right? So it was like the first fully tokenized NFT conference, or really, I don't know. That didn't feel like a conference, right? It felt more like a summit, but you bought your NFT. And that was like your food and beverage, like your hotel, your like admission to all concerts and stuff. Like they had Deadmau5 playing a show, and like that group, right, has kind of just stayed in touch. It's called Future Shape 360, and that group did an LA event at a hotel called the Ziggy Hotel, and I got to meet. His name is Scott Page, but like. He doesn't introduce. He's very subtle. He's a gentleman, right? He introduces himself as Scott, and then you find out he used to play saxophone for Pink Floyd and Toto and Supertramp, and like that's the humility, right, of Web3. Like I met back to New York in Ape Fest in June. This Future Shape, the inaugural event was at the end of July, but back to June, like this is just how the El Mono brain works. Underneath the Fez head, I just jump all over the place, but. I'm at this board chili brunch, and I meet, because there's so many of us, right? That even though I'm doxxed, like anybody can look me up. Obviously, just find the guy with all the tattoos, right? But there's so many of us that are building and leading, and then like founding companies that are still undoxxed, right? And like you have no idea that like. Buddha is Buddha, right? But I got to meet Buddha in person, and then I found out he was Buddha, and I'm like, no, wait, dude, you're a legend. You know this, right? And there's just so many cool people out there that you mentioned it earlier, like being able to go to these things in person, and again, super bullish on the tequila verse because of this, like, and like high-fiving your fellow Bored Ape Yacht Club members, or getting to see people on stage and then finding out about, oh, this is the person I've been following on Web3, like one of my favorite things is going to these conferences or events, and then we like go to look and see if we have any mutuals, and we're already following each other, and it's like, that's you? No way, bro. And I use bro in very, very unisex there. Like I say bro all the time.
That's cool. I'm kind of used to it by now. It's become, like something that I'm not bothered by it, but I normally reply, if anyone calls me bro, I'm like, yeah, no worries, check.
So you said GM earlier, and like, I know I mentioned the Latin American apes, but like it's grown. Like any Spanish speaking country, like Spain as well. Like I've started seeing BD thrown around, like Buenos Dias, and like, I'm super bullish on the BD. Like I try to type BD/GM wherever I can.
That's interesting. That's good. Yeah. Buenos dias. Yeah. Honestly, everything is like, everything just starts trending once enough of us start it, So you get a bunch of apes to do something, and suddenly like everyone starts to duplicate it, and you just start to see it everywhere. Yeah. Maybe I'll start typing BD too.
Yes. Gotta tag I think it's just like LATAM and then _ apes, and like Laura's in there, me and Eddie are in there, or Eddie and I don't know. Do we care about grammar on the Tequila podcast? I don't know.
No, well, no, we can wing it. Whatever happens, happens. It's fine.
No, this is so fun. Again, thanks for having me, and like I'm really excited to be here. But another question that I have for you, besides like asking you tons of alpha questions on the Tequila verse that I don't expect answers to, is like what new projects are you tracking? Like what stuff's on your radar? And it doesn't have to be specific projects, like general technology improvements. We touched on the metaverse earlier, and if you were to ask me the question, it would be those metaverse applications that are more accessible, right? Like I recently downloaded the Kippoverse. It's just an iPhone app, and then suddenly you're in the metaverse, with a global community of Kippos. I don't know if that's the right way to describe it, but like you're in the Kippoverse, right? And you can build your own spaces and then chat, and this is unsolicited alpha. There is a dating feature on the Kippoverse, and I found out about this because one of the founders, I believe she was either the founder or one of the heads of community. Her and I just happened to drop into the same Kippoverse space, and her bio read, "Met my boyfriend in the Kippoverse." And I'm like, "Wait, what are you talking about? How did you meet your boyfriend?" And like, we have a call scheduled this week. She's like, "Oh no, look, there's like a dating feature in the Kippoverse." Like,
Wow.
the humanity's stepping into Web3, and it's like, oh my goodness.
That is the future. Like, I think everything, like people will be getting married in the metaverse, and the smart contract will be like the contract, like the rings, the rings, they'll have to like, I guess, send them via their wallet. There'll be some sort of ownership contract. I think, weddings, funerals, everything, I think will become part of smart contracts in the metaverse. I'm particularly interested in things like the music industry being turned upside down to favor artists. And I think that might be one of the next big things to come, because it's not yet, I guess, evolved, because I guess all of the biggest companies, all of the largest stakeholders who probably own 70% of the whole music industry, but I know some of them are trying to move into the Web3 space. But when a Web3 company is born, without it being a Web2 company first, I think there'll be so many changes made that I do think, and it'll just change the way music is made and created, and how artists will have so much more control. And so I'm excited about that, and for lots of reasons, especially like history. And I'm bullish about that. I'm also bullish about VR technology, and like we're using for our filters right now. I'm quite excited for things to become even more advanced, so that like all of the body features and like everything can be, easily augmented, I think that's going to be quite big. I think one day when people are walking around just in general, their neighborhood, rather than visualizing each other through like their eyesight, rather than looking at someone and seeing a human being, I think it'll be more an avatar. So they'll choose what they want to look like that day, and there'll be some kind of, contact lens or glasses or some sort, where people will no longer walk around as like who they are. They'll be what they want to be, a superhero or an animal or a cartoon, whatever it might be. So I'm excited about all of like those crazy things that have never been there before. I'm excited to see where that goes, to be honest.
No, self-expression is huge. And I mentioned this at the start when you first asked me how I fell into the Bored Ape Yacht Club. When I picked El Mano, I took one look at him, and it wasn't like a second thought. It was like, okay, that's the one. Like, I'm getting him. Like, that's me. Like, same glasses, because I got glasses on under this filter, and like I always wear hats. So I thought the Fez hat was really cool. It's got the little tassel, and like since then I've changed my PFP maybe 5 or 6 times for, if I combined all of those durations, I want to say maybe it was like 6 weeks total, but I've been El Mano ever since. And when, Gary Vee will talk on Instagram, or I heard him speak a few times, and he'll mention, TikTok, right? And like the next generation, like my younger cousins, like the generation after them, they're growing up in a world where digital is first, and they're like, the idea of an analog system is just not even fathomable. Like I remember trying to imagine a time before cell phones, and like, not to date myself too much, but I can still kind of remember, going to meet up at the tree or going to meet up at the park, and you just kind of expect to see people there because that's what you do. But like my little cousin and I, we called on the phone the other day, and I actually picked up the phone and I called her, and she stops me and she thinks I'm prank calling her, like it's a joke, because up until that point in her life, she had never like had an actual phone call. It was always FaceTime. So she thought that it was a joke. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, I'm A, I'm officially old. And B, I wish I could grow up all over again, because the world is going to be so cool. And like, I look forward to the little Elmanos running around in the future metaverse digital reality that we find ourselves in because of that self-expression. Like, it's going to be beautiful to throw angel wings on if I want to be an angel, or, be even cooler to say, hey, let's make 2 clicks and turn like this walkway into an entire interactive video game instead of just like walking down the sidewalk. And super bullish on all of those things. And you mentioned history earlier too, just now. And like one of my friends, her name is Brittany Kaiser. She used to work for Cambridge Analytica, and, all of that aside, like she's really championed the idea of data ownership in Web3 and the blockchain technology, right, as a viable use case. You mentioned the music industry, but, taking that ownership back. I talked about Scott Page earlier. He, if you let him go, like you just put him on stage, and like whether it's Twitter Spaces or like a real stage, and you give him the mic and you say, hey, why do you like Web3? And I'll echo him right now. It's about taking the power back and being in charge of these creations that, you're right, like UMG or whoever takes very sizable percentages of that, the artist or creator, should, in my opinion, and I know you share this too, like have control over. Like you should be able to decide who gets to listen to your stuff, like how you monetize it, and then just take ownership of that. So, I really do want to introduce you to Brittany, because I think she'd be a great guest on the Tequila Time podcast. But one of the other reasons I brought her up was she's working in Ukraine right now with the Ukrainian government and a few other governments, not to like, completely dox her plans, right? But what she's got going on is really cool. It's a full tech stack where she'll be able to send all of these little robots like Boston Dynamics dogs and other things into cultural heritage sites. And they 3D scan the whole shooting match. And next thing you know, it's represented in the metaverse, right? Obviously, Ukraine makes sense with all of the conflicts going on right now, and preserving those cultural heritage sites is paramount. And the applications of it, of course, carry further than that. But the preservation of culture and heritage and the translation of that into Web3 is another area I'm super bullish on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, history with the internet can kind of be rewritten, because whatever we see on Google, people don't really look in books anymore. Meaning, if they ever burnt every book, that's ever been written, we would be beholden to the information we find online. But that can be changed, by the centralized platforms that own all of that information and how it's, I guess, put forward to the public. So as we know, people can become struck off, their accounts can be taken down, everything can be deleted. So to be able to maintain history and be able for it to live on the blockchain, I think is another thing that is super interesting, because once it's on the blockchain, it can't be deleted. So I think that's very exciting.
Yeah, very bullish on all things history and blockchain. So you mentioned earlier how your friends and folks in your circle, like they just kind of see you as this retired person who just, is traveling the world super young. Like I had this vision for myself, just my idea of retirement. It's since changed a ton, but the idea is still there that I wanted to go to Gibraltar off of the coast of Spain, because if you're there, they have this dig site, and it's either the oldest dig site or one of the most active dig sites, where you can go and like volunteer and spend as much of your time as you want just unearthing a Neanderthal campsite. And it's like in this cave on the beach that is so perfectly preserved that all they're doing is peeling back layers of the sand, and the deeper they go, the more preserved artifacts they can find. And in a different life, I was very, very bullish on studying anthropology. And, that may have been one of the other subconscious reasons I gravitated towards the Bored Ape Yacht Club, was the simian nature of it. And, being able to represent more of who we are as these beings in Web3. Like, you touched on this earlier too, that we do stuff and then other communities do stuff. Like, everyone wants to be the next Bored Ape Yacht Club. No one wants to be the next CryptoPunks. Like, the clear difference there. And, that's why I'm really excited that Yuga bought out the CryptoPunks, right? Like, Yuga now owns and gave everyone back their IP. I haven't seen an absolutely killer use of the CryptoPunk IP, again, in my opinion, yet, outside of Tiffany doing the, chains for the CryptoPunks. But I'm super excited to see the next, big CryptoPunk wave after the IP starts to, really take flight there, and just other projects in general, right? Like, start using the IP, get it going.
For sure. Yeah. Anyone who builds their IP right now, makes a brand of what they own, will certainly have brand deals in future, because whatever becomes popular now and then over time and builds and I guess grows a network around it, whatever that might be, there's no reason why people can't just succeed as long as they turn up every day and they work on it and they build, because it's inevitable. Like, I noticed on your profile, it says you advise a project Artemis. What is that exactly?
Yeah, so Artemis itself is a brand, right? So I mentioned the blockchain technology consulting earlier. And back when I made the jump to Web3 full-time in April, really my younger brother's brainchild entirely, but him and I and another business partner, Conrad, right? We all banded together and we launched this blockchain consulting firm called Artemis. And I know we talked on, I'm not going to say we dogged on it, but like the corporate flavor of things in Web3, that's really been our niche, right? Is being able to come from these corporate backgrounds, me coming from this big aerospace and defense industry. My brother, he jumped from HSBC, which, at the time he was working on Wall Street. Like, the guy lives on Wall Street, right? So he's got the big corporate banking background. And Conrad, he, serial entrepreneur turned serial entrepreneur, right? He used to be working for General Mills, and now he's full into Web3 as well. And the three of us together, I mean, again, Artemis itself has since grown more than the three of us, and it will continue to grow because it does look to be that 5 to 10 year building, company, right? We're not in the business of blockchain consulting to, tell you how to make your next cash grab. And there's 10,000 other places that you can go, or dev studios that you can go to for blockchain consulting. But, when I was still at my former employer, one of the last programs that I was involved in was the Artemis mission, which is the first manned space flight to the moon since the shuttle programs of the early, last century, right? And when we look at Web3 and we look at the general ethos of it all, everybody wants to go to the moon, right? Everybody wants that. That's like the goal. And so when we were branding and naming Artemis, it made sense that Artemis would be the brand, right? So Artemis, the slogan then becomes "to the moon together." And that's really our mission, right? Is we want to take clients, corporates, businesses, and individuals that we work with to the moon, but we want to do it in such a way together that helps everybody win, right? And really drives that value, not only for our clients, but for the space as a whole. Because, sure, WAGMI and all of that is phenomenal, but you mentioned there's criminals in the space, right? Like, there's a lot of people that are looking for that cash grab. Hell, I said hell, oh my goodness, I'm sorry. But like, even Kim Kardashian, right? Like, she's on Instagram getting indicted by the SEC for pumping, I think it was Ethereum Classic, and bragging about making millions of dollars on that. The blockchain and Etherscan even is the single greatest invention in the eyes of the IRS over the next 5 years, because it's not a matter of if to me, it's a matter of when. When they get the employees there smart enough that they can become blockchain analysts. There's a lot of people that are going to owe a lot of money, and Artemis is looking to make sure that you're building the right way, right? With our legal teams, the accountants we work with, and all of our advisors within our practice to help elevate that, right? And again, everyone that we work with, we're not in this for the next year, 2, even 3 or 4 years. We're looking 5, 10 years into the future, and we're building, the pathway to that moon together.
That's amazing. Yeah, like it feels like so long since anyone's actually made it to the moon. Like it's quite questionable. Like why? Why has it been so long since that? Because surely so many, I guess, billionaires have pumped money into, innovation. And how is it that we made it once and since then humans have not since touched the moon? I think that's crazy. So I think that's super interesting, but that project, that's exciting.
No, thank you. Yeah. And the reason we haven't touched the moon, right? Again, Elmano's opinion here. This is not indicative of my former employer, nor is this indicative of NASA or anybody else in the space industry, but the Elmano opinion as to why we haven't gone to the moon and set foot back there, right? Like we as a species, like humanity, we've had other priorities, right? If you look at like just different wars around the world or, like ongoing women's rights movements, like most recently in Iran, the focus hasn't been there, right? Like we just haven't had the calling to it. And that's why I'm super excited to have people like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or, Richard Branson, his Virgin Galactic thing, and like the public eye starting to shift towards being excited about space again, because that's what it takes, right? Like in the 1950s and 60s, like the Web 1 days, if you will, we were excited to go to space because it was a competition, right? Like it was the US government versus the USSR, and whoever was first was going to, win, whether it was democracy or communism. And that was a pretty good calling for wanting to go to space, but like now obviously we're well past that and it's not so much a dichotomy. And now the public eye can shift towards what I call commercial space and building out the lunar economy, right? Like when, I start to think about what my brand is going to be and what Elmano is going to, leave behind is, any number of things as far as the IP licensing goes, but I really want to be the first Bored Ape in space. Like I want to be the first Bored Ape Yacht Club, anything, to go to space. And I want to be AR filtered up or mocap suit me in my astronaut suit. I don't care. I'll go float around in space, whether it's suborbital or not. But let it be known right now, Tequila Time Podcast, Elmano's going to go to space, whether I got to buy my own ticket or Elon or Jeff, if y'all see this, I'm ready. Just let me know. Happy to go to space, and that's kind of why I'm here right now.
That's so interesting. Sorry, made me laugh. Yeah, no, definitely. Like that would be like I guess unreal. But the fact that Bored Apes have such a presence, the fact that Elon Musk will definitely fly somewhere, whether it's the moon, Mars. I have every faith that he'll accomplish his wishes. And the fact that Bored Apes have a voice, it kind of tells me that if you really want to go for it, then you're going to make it,
Yeah, and Elon, thank you again for the edit button. I was able to edit a tweet earlier today, so it means a lot. Looks like you're going forward with buying Twitter.
Yeah, like what a human being. Like it's incredible. Like, wow, to buy Twitter. It is insane when you really think about it. There's not anyone like Elon Musk.
Have you ever seen a show called Love, Death, Robots on Netflix?
No. Should I?
I don't assume anything about anyone, right? Especially not in Web3. So like if you're not the type of person that watches TV, even then I would say download Netflix, find Love, Death, Robots, and watch every single episode. It's like a full anthology, and heck, maybe there's like 1 or 2 episodes that are under 10 minutes long, so it's a lot of fun. And there's one kind of character arc across the 3 seasons. By the way, this is the first the first NFT on a TV show I've ever seen. Like after season 3, episode 1, there's a QR code that flashes on the screen. It's like like a second and a half, and you have to like pause it and then go back and scan that thing and be like, oh, no way, is that really what I think it is? And then yes, it really is what you think it is. It's an NFT on Netflix, and like
Wow.
you're taken to a Polygon like minting portal, and you get your NFT, and it's an open edition until I find out otherwise. So, but even then, I bought a ton of them just to make sure. But like, watch Love, Death, Robots. Watch the Three Robots arc. There's like an episode 1 in season 1. There's one in episode or season 2, and then there's another one in season 3 for 3 total. And like, I don't want to spoil anything, but it does touch on our discussion so far, as like going to space and billionaires helping make that happen. The other alpha I'll give on space, just like general space knowledge, right? Because again, like when I was working at this like space company, the coolest thing that I saw was like how much of the stuff is out there for the public. But like with a Jeff Bezos or an Elon Musk, like you kind of follow the cult of personality. But if you're like a deep down, big, huge Star Wars nerd like I am, like I have a lightsaber tattoo on me, like you go deeper. And there's so much out there that like NASA, ESA, or the European Space Agency and other space agencies have made public that you can really nerd out. And like the idea of going to Mars, right? It starts with going to the moon. So
Yeah.
if this is like Earth right now, and like we want to get to the moon, which is my thumb out here, like we need to get rocket fuel to escape Earth's gravitational pull. And like clearly we've done it, right? But the next engineering problem that comes up is like, how do we get from the moon to now Mars, right? Which is like on a different orbit and like way far, right? So
Yeah.
step 1 is getting out of Earth's gravitational pull. And that's kind of what the Artemis mission is looking to do, right? Is set up a lunar base, because it's one thing to have rocket fuel to get out of Earth. But once you have rockets that can launch from the lunar surface, getting to Mars is like very, very, very possible. Like even today, we could launch a rocket from Earth and it would get to Mars. But
Wow.
you know, we've done that. Like the Perseverance Rover, that was another piece of technology that came out of my former employer, right? Like, and I remember the day when Perseverance landed on Mars with Insight, the first Martian helicopter ever, and we're like all jumping up and down in our chairs, like, "Oh, we did it! We're on Mars!" But like to get people there, we have to
Yeah.
get a lunar base first, and I'm super bullish on all things going to the moon.
On that note, so I'm wondering, and I guess if you've heard anything down the grapevine from the aerospace role, do you believe in aliens?
So I don't want to. Short answer, yes. Short answer, yes. There's multiple schools of thought out on extraterrestrial life, and the one that I align with the most is based in probability. If we have in our galaxy alone more than 100 million stars, right? Maybe even a few billion or 100 billion.
Yeah.
The likelihood that we are the only one gets very, 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 very surprising, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that there's El Nanos rolling around in space out there somewhere, but what I'm kind of hinting at is that there has to be life out there somewhere, just from probability standpoint. And even if it's microorganisms or, you know, maybe intelligent life looks different on other planets, right? There's like, you know, plants that have somehow become sentient, and like to us it would just look like foliage covering the planet, but like it's a hive mind that is able to pass, you know, through like electrolysis or somehow communicate with other symbiotes on that planet, and like they synthesize and exist, right? And then their interstellar travel, instead of like building rocket ships, just looks like sending spores out to different planets. Like there's no what extraterrestrial life is in terms of like exactly, and I'm not going to do the outright, you know, aliens, but like, yeah, there's definitely life out there. There's one metaverse. So when I was in LA last, I got to see I didn't meet them, but I found out the next day that they were there. I want to say they're Polish, but they've built a metaverse that when you log into this thing, I personally, I questioned everything around me because like looking at the graphics in this sucker was like, oh my goodness, like what are we doing here? You know, like, so again, back to our metaverse conversation. I'm really, really bullish on all things metaverse.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. The reason I asked you about the alien question was because you're probably the first person I've heard talk about aerospace, and you've actually been in a place where you could, obviously discover maybe hidden gems and secrets. So yeah, I'm interested one day to sort of pick your brain some more, maybe when it's not being recorded, so you can disclose certain information. But yeah, no, I'm super interested in what's above us. I very often look up into the sky and I'm just mesmerized because it's space upon space upon space. There's no end in sight. It just feels infinite. And I think it's a really interesting thing in regards to how I guess insignificant we actually are when maybe many human beings walk around feeling superior to other life on this planet. When you look up above us and you think anything that can exist beyond our solar system, and our, I guess, galaxy, because surely there's space further and further and further. I know there's lots of different theories, but it does feel infinite. And when you think we need certain rockets and we still are not advanced enough to even get to certain points above us. So imagine just how far beyond the reach and scope there is beyond those planets and everything else. And it just, I don't know, it blows my mind. It really does blow my mind, because I believe there must be greater things than us. And there must be just things that are pure energy, not even, I won't go too deep into it because, we'll keep it light. But yeah, I just think I look up into the sky and I think, wow.
It must be very beautiful from some of the islands you've been to where there's not all the city lights polluting everything.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely notice a difference when I'm one side of the world or the other. Whenever I'm the opposite side of the world to paradise, I normally feel like the clouds and the mist is closer to everyone around. Where when I'm, I guess, in paradise or places that I feel are just, pure sunshine with sea air, with this, very minimal pollution, like green zones, blue zones. It's amazing. I feel like there's more sky above me. I feel like the clouds are so much further away. I feel like anything that's blocking the view of, I guess, the sky is just, there's a lot more space in between. So that's definitely something I noticed, especially over the last few years. It's interesting.
I look forward to seeing the very first, and it may already be out there, but I missed it. But like the very first tequila, oh, this is perfect. The very first tequila sunrise, or the very first like tequila nighttime like sky pics. I'm really bullish on those too.
I love it. I love it. And tequila sunrise is actually a cocktail. I don't know if you've tried it.
No, I haven't.
It's quite nice. It's quite nice. Like, do you like tequila at all? Do you ever take a shot and enjoy it?
I love tequila. I love it.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's like my favorite drink. And I guess that's where the name comes from. I don't really drink. Like, I'm not someone who drinks alcohol hardly ever. But if I do drink, it's definitely tequila, and it has to be the good stuff. And I feel like I've got high energy, whether I'm, I don't know, high on tequila or high on fresh air. But yeah, the name definitely suits.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, the other one that I don't know if you've tried this before, but what's it called? Mezcal. Have you tried mezcal before?
Yeah. And it's basically like a meal. You get like all different spices with it. And I think they give you some pineapple with lemon and orange even. Yeah, it's basically like a picnic, I think, the last one I saw. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, so much in fact that it's a brand out of northern Mexico from a state called Chihuahua called Sotol. And I met the two brothers that are behind the whole thing. Like they started the brand 2 or 3 years ago, and their family
Wow.
owns the ranch that they cook all the agave and, the whole thing, like from, agave to mezcal. And
Amazing.
another bit of alpha, there will be some El Mano Sotol bottles coming to the US
Oh.
very soon, and I'll make sure you get one of those.
Nice. So now I've got, some El Mono alcohol and some coffee coming. I'm enjoying this conversation so far. You can come back.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
Yeah. I'm so excited to just, I guess, learn from people. So it's not just about, I guess, talking and talking. It's also just about sharing golden nuggets of information that, because we've all walked different paths of life, we're all going to have different experiences as we go. And the amount of, I guess, people in our community that we can learn from excites me so much. Like, I'm bubbling inside for the things I'm going to hear and learn. And everything you've told me today has been, we'll say maybe 90% of it has been new, things I didn't even know. So I'm already learning. I'm gaining knowledge, and I've got more things now to research and more things now to just sort of, I guess, absorb into my mind. I want my brain to be like the sponge that absorbs everything. And yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. I think it's been incredibly valuable to myself and to anyone who watches this podcast. So I hope you come back, and I hope you have had a great time as well speaking to me.
The understatement of the year. Pleasure to chat with you, Tequila, and I look forward to following the Tequila Time podcast and coming on again at a later date.
Thank you. I look forward to having you for sure. We're gonna make it. Let's fucking go. Tequila!
Oh, that felt good.
Thanks so much, fam. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. And yeah, I cannot wait to hear what you've got back to come on the show with. I'm excited. Maybe we'll go back into the aliens a bit more.
Deep.